What's up, guys? Will and Chris back with another weekly Beluga podcast where we waste our lives on crypto Twitter and in the trenches so that you don't have to. This week, we've got a bit of a special episode. For anybody who's been watching and doesn't know, Chris is also the founder of an upcoming Layer 2 blockchain called the Plume network. And since we are getting pretty close to their mainnet launch, we wanted to kind of dive into some of the cool stuff that they've been doing. So we will get into that after we do our little normal discussion of the majors, because there have been some major nukes flying around, both in the order books and IRL. So I guess you want to pull up the Bitcoin chart, Chris? Let's get into this.
Yeah, it's been nutty. I mean, it's actually hilarious, like, what happened. We just had, like, everyone's talking about October, right? And, like, the beginning of the cycle.
It was, like, at midnight, October 1. Yep.
Oh, it's just hilarious, dude. So, I mean, just to maybe recap. I mean, right now, this is where we are. This is a 30-minute chart. Maybe I'll zoom out a little bit. This is a 2-hour chart over time, right? And so we're looking at, what is it? The 2nd of October now. So, okay. So this is kind of where we were, right? This is, oh God. Yeah. Oh, I see. I haven't even really been paying attention that much. So, okay. So this is kind of the overall trend. We were looking at, look at this thing. We're just on a nice grind upwards all the way from here for the last few weeks. We have bunch of sort of positive macro news. We have rate cuts, right? That's kind of one big thing. Token 2049 was last week, which is generally conferences are generally bearish, but we also had Breakpoint at the same time. So a lot of conferences tend to be bullish, so who knows? But there was that, and then we had. Excuse me.
China's
CZ got
change
out of prison.
CZ, yes. That's right. I forgot.
CZ got out of jail too. Right, and he started bull posting again, or at least just tweeting again, which is great. And like you said, also China and just the Asian stocks in general, right, are just absolutely melting up. It's just been going incredibly well. So all of the sort of conditions are right to lead to this fucking epic blow off top, and it maps perfectly to last year. Right, last year. Right around this time, we talked about this a couple of pods ago, right around this time last year, it began to melt upwards. Basically, the end of September was when it began to really rip up, and it was just a relentless grind up and just absolutely nuclear since then. And we saw that exact same momentum and the same feeling, and I'm sure people were getting a little bit, I was getting antsy, right? And then, of course, like you said, fucking first day of October, which is really supposed to be when it commences, we get this news that these fucking missiles are flying around, and we may be getting World War III. And we just
like the biggest, I think it was like the biggest ballistic missile launch in years or something. Like, come on. It feels so almost hilarious. Like it's like, intentional almost. They knew it was October.
Netanyahu's like looking for an entry.
There were so many good Pelosi memes about this. Just needed her entry. Yeah, I don't know. I think like if we look back to when the conflict originally started, which was kind of like, one of the worst days we've had in crypto almost ever. That was the low point in October, right? If I'm remembering correctly. I think it was also October 2023. Something like that.
Actually, I don't know.
We lost. And we had, pretty nice price action after that. I think when we get massive bad macro events like this, often the fear of it getting worse in the moment is much worse than the actual effects of whatever bad thing is happening. So you tend to get local bottoms in the market. I'm hoping that's what this is. I deployed our last couple stables in the Beluga wallet on the dip yesterday. And personally, I'm looking to buy a few things. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I don't know. What's your take, Chris? We did reject off of that trend line, though, of Bitcoin due to this. So I'm sure that the technical traders are, entering into their high leverage shorts.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. Like, my timeline is filled with like a lose this and it's lights out type bullshit. And then we definitely lost it, So everyone's like, oh, fuck, it's going back down to 52. Just ridiculous, honestly. I just shut the fuck up, man. And just like,
I think this is a great reminder that these lines like are meaningless. Not specifically the ones on Chris's chart, but they're all of the lines in general.
They're really just stupid. I mean, it's a line, dude. You think this trades to a line? It doesn't make any fucking sense, dude. It's a useful input, I think. But like, you can't.
Yeah.
It's not a religion, dude. And some people treat it like that. It's like, oh, there's the chart will respect. Like the chart doesn't respect shit, dude. Someone can just fucking dump a big bag and it's just gonna go below. It has nothing to do with the fucking chart, dude. It's just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life, dude. But again, but I get why people do it. It's useful, and like you gotta search for something to justify your sort of irrational decision making.
Yeah,
and
it helps on the
know?
psychological side. I mean, trading is such a psychological activity. Like, if you need to confirm your bullish bias, like, feel free to draw your lines.
To draw some lines,
that's the
feel
only
good about
reason
yourself.
I do it.
Exactly, and like throw a big bag in,
pop a triangle up on the chart somewhere.
Exactly. So it's just hilarious. But I would say, I'm still, I don't know, I couldn't be more bullish, honestly. I feel like it's one of those things where, it is funny because even in the moment throughout this whole year, like, I feel like if you go back in time to when we started, like, this is exactly the trend we've been talking about. I think we've been like on a medium time frame, have been basically right about everything, right? Which is obviously like, throwing a little bit, probably giving us too much credit, but like it's not even just a we know. Like, I feel like it was obvious to everybody, which is like, this is like generally how it happens. We're going to have a run up here. We're going to like begin to top out, right? The summer's going to be slow. We're going to kind of chop around. It's going to be mixed and it's going to be a lot of pain. And then right around this time, we begin to go up, right? And are there going to be like crazy things happen in between that make you go up and down? Of course. And that's what's happened, right? But like, it's all basically respected that exact pattern. And even in the moment, you get nervous about these things, and I have for sure, and it's just funny to remember these types of things. And especially when, like, I don't know, I feel like trading and like being in crypto is such a high velocity information game, where like I'm just digesting just like tons of nonsense from a bunch of fucking anons. Some pretend to be chicks, some are dudes, some are fucking frogs, some are, and like there's always a bunch of like stupid memes. And so it's just like melting your brain at the same time. And like you're trying to figure out what's going on. But like medium timer is actually like pretty clear, and I feel like we're in one of those times right now where like risk adjusted, could things still go to hell? Of course, nothing is absolute, right? And if things go the wrong way in the election, or Kamala takes it, or whatever it is, like it could be, could things go bad? Yeah, of course. Like if World War III actually starts, is it bad? Fuck, probably, But like risk adjusted, I feel like this happens all the fucking time, and where we are in the cycle feels like we're about to just rip upwards. And so I would, place your bets accordingly, I guess, and don't go two balls to the wall, because who knows, especially on the backdrop of some nukes, some missiles flying around, but still, to me, that just changes the sort of like probability from, I don't know, 90% to like 80%, but it's you just size down a little bit, but I'm still mega long, so I don't know. I think it's still bullish all around, and now's a good time to get in. If does it dip more, maybe, but then just buy more,
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel good about it all, and I feel like it could not be looking better. Personally, I feel like this is tracking exactly where I thought we're going. We're going to have a blow off top. CZ back, markets are hot. Eigen went out yesterday. Vol's okay, but it's holding at least, right? And like things are happening. So I think we were a little bit delayed from where we probably thought we were going to be, but overall, still tracking.
Yeah, I would also think. Ahead, no, definitely not. I do think it's interesting. Like we've talked about it on the pod a bunch, but I mostly rotated out of my meme coin bags into DeFi, which that rotation has kind of been happening. DeFi has been doing pretty well across altcoins, but I think the strongest asset class, like Phantom aside, that's been crushing it still, has been meme coins through this big dip. So I don't know if it's purely due to everybody saying meme coins are dying, let's just like kind of keeping it at the forefront of attention or what, but I think that's kind of an interesting trend. Meme coin volume is still quite high. Just today, we have another one of I think it's the Doge owner posted that they have a new dog or something. Now there's like 7 different coins at 20 million. So like stuff's still happening despite this drop off, which is not what you expect to see when things are really dying. Yeah,
totally. So yeah, I think we're in the beginning of a change in sort of sentiment, right? Where we're going from like mostly negative to sideways to now like sideways to slightly positive, right? And so we just need to keep moving up that curve and we'll be in the right place. But today, yeah, look, it's pretty red all day. It's just not a strong day, but good. Red's for buying. When you're in an upside, when you're up market, like red is a good thing.
Red is for either buying or knowing that you shouldn't open your portfolio tracker to see what the balance looks like.
Exactly. Go touch grass and just get
Set
the
and
fuck out of here
forget
for a bit. Oh, God. Good. Cool.
Good. Well, yeah. Should we get into to some Plume discussion? I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think we've really talked about it at all on the podcast. So, do you want to maybe just start with who you are, some of your background, and
totally
where the idea for Plume came from?
Totally. So, look, really quickly, you guys know me, I'm Chris already, but I'm Chris. I'm the founder and CEO of Plume. There's three of us started the company about a year ago now. Shit, it's October, huh? So yeah, about a year ago now, where really the idea was very simple at the time. I've always been, when we talk about trading here a lot, we talk about degen stuff a lot, right? And I love crypto as much as the next person. I really think that I mean, there's everything from the technology, which I'm actually mega bullish on, in general about decentralized computing and open finance and all these types of things. I think it's great. Two is the sort of culture, right, around crypto, which is just hilarious, right? And just the types of people that get involved in the mix, the sort of different age ranges, the fact that it's global from day one, all those things, right? As well as the sort of ethos. It's open, right? It's sort of very. I think it's one of the few open arenas in the world. Does it mean there's not insider trading and there's not manipulation? That's not at all what I'm saying. There's definitely a lot of that, but it by nature is open, which is just different from most things, and so it leads to a different dynamic. So I've loved all of that, but the core thing I've always thought is at the end of the day, we need to bring more things in. At the end of the day, the number of dollars, users, and excuse me, types of things you can do in crypto today is just still very small on a relative basis to the whole world, right? And so I've always been focused on a sort of onboarding story. How can we get more people, dollars, and things into the ecosystem? I've been working on Beluga with you guys, and Beluga was one of those things as well, which is how can we make it easier and more appealable for people to come in, right? And do things. And while we were doing that, I had angel invested in a couple different RWA projects. I've always been interested in this idea of real world things on chain because it just makes sense conceptually, right? The real world is if the classic example everybody uses is houses, right? Buying a house is an annoying process. It takes forever, and then ultimately it's a title. It's a piece of title that is stored somewhere that says that you own this house, but you don't really own it because someone owns it, and you don't really have it. So you should be able to own it and take it with you, right? That's the very simple idea. And so I've always kind of I've liked the concept behind it, but if you look at the actual stuff on chain today, especially around RWAs, right? There's fucking nothing, right? It's generally garbage and mostly trash, right? And It was always interesting why that's the case. And so right around this time last year, I had started to go talk to a bunch of these RWA protocols to kind of figure out what was going on, right? We had played around a couple things around DeFi and GameFi, all these things. Again, the sort of subtext to all of them is onboarding, right? And so. But we've kind of gone on the RWA path and realized a few things. Look, I've never used these products. There's been a bunch of them from last cycle, right? Things like Centrifuge, things like Goldfinch, things like Maple or whatever, right? That are really more, we can get to a second, but they're the classic TradFi products that are brought on chain, right? So in order to use them, it's actually a very markedly different experience using those products than regular crypto products. Regular crypto products are open protocols that I can just use and just get into it, right? And it's a thing, right? It's open, permissionless, composable, all of that, right? The problem with RWA projects is they end up being more permissioned. They're sort of usually locked up, right? They're not composable. They're like Web2 products, just happen to live on chain, right? And that was always my knock on the whole ecosystem and what was going on there. So we decided very simply to say, look, let's take a look at what's going on. Let's go talk to these projects and let's figure out what's going on there. And so we ended up kind of building this whole ecosystem around this and really realizing a bunch of the problems that were happening here. We had a certain viewpoint on it. Fast forward to today, we've got a team of 20, 30-ish people now across this. We've built one of the might be the biggest ecosystems, the leading ecosystems in RWAs. We've got over 180 protocols building on us today. We recently announced a little bit over $1 billion of assets coming onto Plume as well. We've got a bunch of liquidity coming on as well, several $100 million. And of course, from a user perspective, we just wrapped up our test that we did a 2-month testnet campaign to kind of get a feel for the technology, but also the community itself. We have a big following on Twitter. We've got over 500,000 followers, big following in Discord and Telegram, all those things. But we want to put them to test and see, do people really give a shit, and put them onto the testnet. And the great thing is, we just ripped the testnet to shreds in a good way, right? We really got, it was over the course of 8 weeks. It was, 3.75 million active wallets came in and performing transactions. We had over 275 million transactions on chain at that point as well. And so, really just like testing limits of this chain. And so we took it down a couple weeks ago to basically revamp and do a lot of maintenance and bring it ready for the next stage. And we're leading up into mainnet now. And so that's the whole idea, is to build this ecosystem around RWAs, right? And not because we're like RWA backsies, right? I think we're really, in my opinion, following user behavior. We're the first ecosystem, in my opinion, from an RWA perspective, to think about things as crypto people, right? Our team comes from Binance, comes from Coinbase, comes from DYDX, comes from Layer Zero, comes from very classic crypto businesses and crypto places. And the idea was always very simple. How can we make RWAs more useful to the crypto native, right? To me, that's a starting point versus the other way, which is how do we make RWA, how do we make the blockchain useful to other people? Right? Like, I've always thought that was the wrong orientation and what people were trying to do. And what happens there is, like, you end up selling a technology solution to people that are looking for a problem versus trying to solve a problem that people have on chain in a way that already helps them. Right. And so anyway, that's the whole story. I really think that we're building this ecosystem to first serve the crypto native audience, and then second, grow the ecosystem after, and then allow that as a canvas to bring people in. Right. So anyway, I'll stop there. I could like ramble on about this for a while, but I'll stop there. Any questions?
Yeah. Well, I think I can't even name all the layer 2s that have launched over the last, even call it a year. And so this is obviously a crowded space. I think one of the things, aside from obviously, our RWA is a specific narrative, which is different. But I think one of the things that you guys have done that I've found pretty refreshing, and I'm not just saying this because I know you, is there's a lot of novel applications that are being built on the chain, and the chain's not even fully out yet. Like, keep in mind, this has been dev mainnet and dev testnet rather, and more recently user testnet. But a lot of times what you see with these layer 2s specifically is their value prop is, hey, you can do all the stuff you've already been doing on these other chains, but you can just do it like where we're doing it now. And there's not really anything new. There's nothing that's like different. So not only is the RWA narrative great, I think, but it's cool that you guys are building new things to, as you said, solve problems. It's not just like porting Uniswap to your own chain, which is cool.
And I think like you said, like, that's exactly right. I think people are both tired of that shit, right?
Yeah. We have enough of it, like more than enough of it.
It's not bad. Look, I have friends that do that too, and like, I'm not above it either. So I'm not like, I don't know sure anyone, but like, I think the nature of what we do, it's really more like, look, I love to say we're doing it because we like to, like, it's just inherent to the nature of what we're doing that we have to be different and we have to focus it because it is a different type of thing. But it is more fun that way, truthfully. Like, I look a lot at like other ecosystems that I think there is a decent amount of like new things happening right now, right? Which has been great to see versus the classic, let's take ecosystem A, right? We'll clone it onto here, and then everyone does the same thing. We see the same thing even with Pump.fun, right? Pump happened on Sol, right? Great new product, and then we see that fucking rip across every other chain. Everyone's got their own Pump.fun now, right? Or take GMX. GMX on ARB happened. Great. Fucking trillion GMX now. You got airdrop. Like, everything happened. Even Curve. Every single thing is the same,
everything.
Right? And so, and it's two things. Some of these are core utilities. Right, that you need. Every chain needs a swap, a marketplace or whatever it might be, money market, blah blah blah. Right, but that's a handful of things. Like 90% of it is nonsense and just copied over. And so we are trying to do two different things. And I think, in my opinion, like, the introduction of tokens and money in combination with product development at the same time creates perverse incentives, right? And so it leads people to do these types of things, and which holds us back, right? And our story in our game has always been, how can we use the benefits of tokens and the benefits of the attention that people get in crypto in a positive way to accelerate what we're doing versus get lost in the sauce and get caught up just trying to manipulate the game, right? And so, I think that's why, if you go back to the fundamentals of it all, like, how do you really build new products? In my opinion, the way to do this is you follow user behaviors, right? You follow user behavior, and then you use technology to try and make that simpler, easier, or unlock a new way to do that, or a new type of thing people try. But people always tell you what they want to do already. It's actually very simple, right? If you follow behaviors, people tell you. So I'll give you a simple example, like, RWAs, sure, like, there's always is all this conceptual reasoning as to why RWAs are good on chain, right? Oh, because like when you buy a house, it's like hard to do. So why should we? Yeah, great. That's fucking stupid though. Like that's just ridiculous. I think real estate is like one of the worst use cases on crypto. Which is not to say it's bad. We have plenty of real estate projects on Plume, so I'm not knocking it all. But just generally speaking, like the general tone around RWAs and like real estate often is misguided, right?
Yep, agreed.
And so, but like, what can you do, right? I think if you look at user behaviors again, there are two things that in my mind really shine and stand out when it comes to RWAs that like showcase what this is. Number one, in my opinion, the best, like everyone was asking me like what asset's going to work, right? And what asset's going to become a thing. And the first one I would say is like, the funny thing is like, arguably the best product in crypto today is an RWA, right? It's a stablecoin, right? And if you look at the stablecoin, the reason why everyone forgets about the stablecoin as an RWA is because the stablecoin doesn't feel like all the things that RWAs are supposed to feel like. It just feels like crypto. So why would you have a new label on it, right? And so, excuse me. And so, like when you look at that, it tells you what people are already doing, right? So, like in an up cycle, what do people do? They go risk on. They buy a bunch of shitters. They go to tokens. They start to do DeFi stuff. You're looping. You're leveraging. Blah blah blah. Right. And then when things are bad, right, people flip back into RWAs, right? And like that's what people do today, right? And it turns out when things are bad, it's boring because there's a limited amount of things you can do from it, right? When you only have the stablecoin and you only have compound and Aave, and you can only use that to like lev long different tokens. When all tokens are down, it's just limited ability. So like you park in the stables, and then I'll like throw it into compound and make 1% to 2% or Aave into 1% or 2% on money market, right? Like that's what everyone did last cycle, right? When shit went bad, that's what happened, right? But the nice thing was it shows us that people want to be able to make money in multiple ways. There's a multitude of things. In an up cycle, there's a certain like style of things you want to do. In a down cycle, there's a certain style. In an up cycle, there's an infinite amount of things to do today, right? It's the dimensions are, and it's awesome, right? But when things are bad, there's only one thing to do, right? And so the idea is to basically sort of expand the aperture and let people do more of that. Where it's like when you're parking in, and you're already seeing this today. We have stables today that do nothing. There's zero yield. Right. Some are backed by the U.S. Some are backed by like, a safe company in the U.S. and some are backed by whoever the fuck it is. But even then, it's fine. Right. Like that's what people do. Right. So like that's what people do today. Now, you can already see with the treasury and these types of things that people are moving to yield bearing stable because they realize like, fuck, dude, if I'm going to hold stables, why shouldn't I make some money on it? Right. So you can like clearly see the progression where we go from stables to stables plus yield to like slightly further up the risk curve with a little bit more yield and so on and so on and so forth. Right. Even Athena, right, as an example, is mimicking the stable coin, but not really as well. Right. Because people, again, they're seeking stability plus yield. That's really the dimensions that matter. Right. They want stability plus yield. And it used to be pure stability. Right. And now we're willing to go up a little bit on the stability side and get more yield. Right. And so that's the balance. And so it's like by introducing new products around this that make it easy to use, that's one. The second place, that's why I think there's like a ton of new RBAs that can come into place, like take that place where, when things are bad, don't just park in stables. You can park in all kinds of yield bearing stables. You can also do all kinds of DeFi shit on there. If you want to loop, you want to leverage, you want to do whatever the fuck you got to do, right? Go for it, right? You want to create a basket, you want to create an index, do whatever you got to do. Like that's totally fine, right? Like that to me is one area where like people clearly are showing that there's demand from a user perspective, and how can we just give them the tools to build more, right? The other side, in my opinion, is like that's the very like stable, safe, fundamental side that like a lot of people think about RWAs, right? The other side is the shitcoin side, right? Like the speculation side, right? And this is the part that you and I live in a lot, right? So like, I think, if you look at speculation today, like, again, if you flip up a deck screener any day of the week, there was the VP debate last night, right? If you flip up a deck screener like any day of the week, the amount of shitcoins that are flashing up about new things that are related to a new event are astronomical, right? Like it's just constantly going up and down, right? Like the last debate that happened, even when Trump got shot, there's a bunch of ear memes, right? The Kamala Trump debate, there's all kinds of stuff. And then when Biden jumped out, what happened? Like the Kamala token went up, the Gavin Newsom token went up.
You can literally just watch the pump.fun new coins created feed and have like the best possible live headline update ever.
100%. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Like you said, I think you and I both had friends during the debates where during the debate, I got a friend there sitting there just like listening in at pump and just like fucking yeeting out new coins every fucking phrase, and just trying to get that going, and like that's the thing. Right. And that's because, again, if you think about what that actually is, it's people trying to speculate on real things, right? And apply a crypto native mentality to the real world. Right. And there's no reason why RWAs have to feel like your grandfather's fucking bonds or some shit like that. It's just like it shouldn't have to be. Like the end of the day, like we're just trying to we're putting the shit on chain. Right. If you go back to the stablecoin, the stablecoin was not just taking the US dollar and putting it and just like slapping it onto the blockchain. It was building the US dollar in a crypto native way for the on-chain economy. That's why it's composable, it's liquid, and sure, are there two steps? One's permissionless, sure. But at the end of the day, to 99% of us, it's just crypto. It's permissionless. I get it wherever the fuck I need to get it, and I go all my life. That's what the magic of it is, right? And so if you think about that, like we are trying to make real world assets useful to crypto natives first, right? And so, real world things like a lot of these things can be synthetics. Right, and that's what meme coins are. Meme coins are synthetic versions of other things, right? And this happens in the real world too, right? Again, like you go to Nvidia. Nvidia is just like a Sam Altman is a Sam Altman or like an AI token. Sorry, Nvidia is like an AI thing, right? Like it's just a gamble in AI. And WorldCoin is the Sam Altman coin, right? Like at the end of the day, WorldCoin has no relation to the fucking silver orb, right? It's just purely about Sam, right? And so all of these things are related, and like the world is seeking new ways to speculate on things about the real world, right? And so for us, right, when you're talking about bringing real things on chain, it can be two things. One, we can actually tokenize, a house or a car or a watch or a shoe or a sneaker or whatever the fuck it is, put it on chain so you can buy a piece of it and own it on chain. The other way is I just like take the price of this thing or take some representation of this thing, put it on chain and make it easy for someone to gamble on it. Right. And speculate on it, because that's what a lot of the shit is, right? Like, a lot of people that are buying Jordans, as example, don't give a fuck about taking delivery. I'm just gambling on the price. And that's the best I can do today. I can do spot. But just like every single market in history, right? Spot is the beginning. And the minute you introduce synthetics and derivatives on top, it fucking exponentiates. It explodes, right? Because that's what the activity is, right? Even now, World War III going on the other day. What happened? Lockheed Martin fucking tokens or equities ripped. That's just how the world works, right? Like it turns out, like it's that meme from the Hangover, when everyone's like fucked up doing, at the crabs table, like that's what it is. The world's going to hell. No matter what happens, people are shooting dice. Like that's as simple as that. And so, for us on the other side, it's like, you don't have to you can bring on all kinds of representations of things to make it very easy to speculate on these things and really expand the scope of what you can do, right? And I can show you a couple examples real quick, take let me pull this up real quick. Okay, I don't know where it is, but that's fine. Here, let me pull this shit up. So here, right here, let me pull this shit up. I can just show you a quick example, right? Like, instead of just gambling or speculating on individual things where, excuse me, man, what the hell is going on here? Sorry, my screen share is not working.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. All right, give me a sec. Jesus. Okay. I will just share this. It should work. You good? This work? Got it. Yeah, okay, cool. So, like, this is an example of taking something in the real world and like making it useful for crypto people. Everyone in crypto is familiar with this screen, right? This is a classic perps trading of environment where you've got a chart here, right? You've got an amount. You can long short this thing, right? And then you can use lev, right? Very simple. You got a stop loss, right, or whatever, and you can place the order, right? And this right here is a set of tokens. We have the Kamala token and the Trump token, right? And what this is instead of a free floating token that's just like, the problem with like if you go to Dexter today and like search Trump, right? There's a fucking trillion tokens. And it's not that it's bad, but just take a look at this shit. Like if you search Trump, there's a fucking million tokens here, right? The problem is, right, what is this? $1 million in liquidity. Okay, not too bad. 143K, 3 mils actually not too bad either, but like 200, 550, 50K, 130K, 18K, 58K, 22K, like which one do you fucking buy? What's the real thing here? And Trump's actually like a higher liquidity one, relatively speaking, but you've got Trump, you've got all fucking million of these things, right? This is people trying to do things around the world, but like this is a pretty shitty user experience. Like most of the people that come here, like me and Will are fine. Right. I know, send me the contract address. I'm all right. I know how to do some light checking to like make sure it's not a rug. But this is a really stupid way. One, you're fragmenting liquidity. Right. Two, it's just like this is such a bad way to do things. Like most of this shit's rugs. 120K liquidity on this shit. Right. 21, like someone could rug this at any minute of the day, right? And this is the chart, right? Like this is not a good way to get people into crypto. You know what I mean? This is really just like playing on the moment in time and then just fucking someone rugging it, right? And
I didn't remember this got up that high, to be honest.
I honestly didn't either until right this second. But I'm like, damn, not bad. But it's still at 19, which is more than I thought, truthfully, to be honest. But anyway, like if you look at this, it's a bad user experience. So we go to something like this, where instead of it being pure order book and pure like this is based on what's going on in the market at the time. And this is based on a bunch of signals from the real world, right? You're looking at things like, election data. You're looking at things like polling data. You're looking at things like news sentiment, right? All these individual things come together to give you a sense of where things are trading. So I can watch this and trade this real time, right? I can just get a real sense of what's going on. Okay, there's a pump because Kamala made some good speech. Trump said something stupid, or she said some bullshit about the border or whatever. We're down here again. So you can like trade this just like you would anything. Right. And that's the idea, is like you can take things in the real world and make them useful to people. Right. And create a synthetic version. And then Kamala's one. Right. Kamala is an accumulation of like 50 different things. Right. In this case. Right. But this could be anything. Right. And that to me is where this gets exciting, where sure, one of our protocols called Racks today. You can take out a 50x level long on Pokemon cards. Right. Because the same thing. They take an index of Pokemon cards. They tokenize it. They bring the price on chain. They make it easier for you to gamble against it. Cool. I like it. It's awesome. The thing about that, though, is if you take the same analogy further, why stick it to synthetics of real things? It doesn't have to be. It could be synthetic of anything, right? You could also do concepts. You could do ideas. You could do anything, right? And so, for example, one of the protocols we're working with wants to make it easy to speculate on. Actually, it's cultured, but like to make you speculate on different cultures, right? So if I'm just like bullish on America, of which I am, then I would just like lev long America, right? And maybe I want to balance it out with like a short on Europe because I'm just like, dude, I don't know what's going on there. Like shit's going sideways. We'll just bet on the other side. So I'll just take a short on there and do a nice pair trade that way, right? Or if you want to go even more esoteric, like let's say I'm mega bullish on Asian food. I personally let's say like if I think like one cuisine's gonna take over, I think Asian food is really having a moment right now. So we could like see how that. I see Mexican food, like Korean food had a moment a couple years ago, right? Where like there's bulgogi beef everywhere.
KBBQ.
So, like, yeah, exactly. Like it's like a thing. It just kind of became everywhere. And then you also had like Korean barbecue, like burritos and shit. So I was like, okay, if I could have, I would just lev long the fuck out of Korean food because I was, and we could just take some of like the price of the sort of like the number of restaurants in K Town or like or whatever it is, and take like an index of 20 of these things, feed us, and let make it easier for people to speculate on this stuff, right? Like, so that's the idea. Is like, the on-chain audience wants to do a bunch of this stuff, and sure, there is the classic view of RWAs, in which we have two. This is Nest, right? Actually, give me 1 second. I gotta get this fucking URL again. Okay, there we go. Good. So this is Nest. There we go. Perfect. Okay, there we go. Nest is our protocol that works with Plume, and what this is it takes a mixture of like a bunch of different things and comes with an index, and so this way you can like put this together pretty easily. So give me 1 second, I'll just pull this up. There we go. God damn it. Anyway, so like what Nest is a way, it's like a simple way to like buy and trade RWAs without having to get into this, right? So you can say, hey, look, this is Nest, there's this composition, there's some like stables, but it's really like a bunch of tech, right? Which is a combination of a bunch of different like equities that were put in here. And so it's very simple. I can just come in here, stake my stables, and then buy some of this neg asphalt token, right? I could say, oh, I'll just do like 10 of this or whatever. I actually don't think I have anything in this wallet. Yeah, so I'm cooked. Unfortunately, but I don't think so. But like the way you would work is like you just literally just like in a crypto way, come here, take your stables, swap it in here, and get some of this token. And there's a little fee, of course. But once you do that, you just begin earning both the stables, but also the Nest token, right? And so this is the easiest way to like chill on this thing and sit here and get exposure to XYZ underlying while also just also earning tokens. And so this is the best place to get stable real yields, right? I think everyone's come to realize that most yields are bullshit in crypto, right? Big surprise.
Yeah.
Right?
We went through the disillusionment after like the 2 quadrillion % APY Ponzi protocols last cycle.
Exactly. I was going to say, like, the funny thing is like, here we go. Okay, here it is. The funny thing is like, most assets, like last time we had a 20% guaranteed stable return, we had a $60 billion blow up, and like we are barreling right back towards that direction. Like people just didn't seem to learn it. But like the thing is, like this time around, a lot of people have realized 20% yields or 30% stable yields in crypto are bullshit, right? It's not that it's not real. It's that when yields are purely endogenous to crypto, there's a certain it will go down, right? It's either going to continue in perpetuity and it won't last, right? Because or it'll just go down over time, right? Because it's the initial mechanism to bootstrap the ecosystem, right? Whereas, when you begin to mix these two things together, both endogenous and exogenous yields, then you can begin to actually get stuff in. And that's what people want, right? It's like, how can you, I want token exposure just as much as the next guy. So I want to earn these tokens. I want to be able to do things with them at the same time. But if I can also earn real stable yields at the same time, like why wouldn't you go to Aave or Compound or anything anytime, right? You look at the yields that you're able to get from this thing. Right. Let's look at any market here. Right. The APYs are like, okay, right. 2%.
Well, they were under T-bill rates for a while. I think they just now finally are not.
It's still not great though.
Like,
these are still like pretty whatever, but like,
I think like the best like real example we've had so far of just how high the demand for real yield is in crypto is how the Maker token is done. I mean, all they had to do was add very, very simple, no extra gimmicks, no nothing, T-bill exposure using the underlying collateral and use some of their revenue for buybacks. And I mean, that token is, I don't remember how much exactly it's up from the lows, but since they announced it, it's probably 300-400%, something like that.
It's gone really well.
And I mean, the TVL is still doing very well, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that just shows the real demand. Like, this is not even exciting yield, so to speak, but it's real yield that became the best place to park it. So, yeah, no, I think this is a clear and obvious opportunity for you guys.
Totally. Exactly. And then the idea would be like, if I'm sitting here parked in Mineral Vault, as a simple example, right? It's an oil field that just makes money, right? This is 12% APY right now. We got $230 million here or whatever, right? Like I can sit here and just make money on this thing. If we were to do that, right? Let's just try and see if I have some of this other wallet. There we go. Cool. So now I stake these tokens. Great. Now I've got 10 of this thing that's just sitting there earning cash. Right, it's like the easiest thing on the planet. I could redeem and I could do the max thing if I want, but it's like a classic crypto experience. There's nothing to think about, right? And then while I have this mineral tokens, I can then go out into my favorite perp stacks, use as collateral and trade, right? Or I can then go to money market and use it as a loan, take it on, do whatever I got to do, right? It's classic crypto, but just happens to be RWAs, and so that's why I think this is an important part of the story. You can see, okay, actually, I'm starting to earn yield, right? So you can start to see the yield coming in here, right? I've USDC, right? I'm getting a 12% yield, so it's already starting to print for me, right? And same thing with Nest. I should be getting some Nest tokens here, so I can claim this anytime, right? Again, classic crypto experience. Put your money here, put it to work, start to earn, but while you're doing that, go fuck around in crypto and do whatever you got to do, right? And so again, we're not maxis about just RWAs. It's just about allowing the users to do both at the same time. Right, and have more surface area to cover on that. So that's what I think is exciting about this. Is like I think we're one of the few, if not the only, ecosystems that are actually bringing new things into crypto, right? And really trying to grow crypto in this dimension, right? I think a lot of people are focused on infrastructure, and look, we need it. Don't get me wrong. I think a lot of that is very good. We're just focused on a different angle, and so I think you combine these things together, it actually becomes very powerful.
Yep. No, totally agreed. If we could go back, I think this may be something I asked you a while ago when we were first talking about. I didn't know the name until today, but Cultured.
Yep.
I would love to just hear more about like how the index actually functions, like what is it sensitive to, stuff like that. Because I think like the idea is obviously amazing if it's like functioning perfectly, but like especially on 50x leverage, like having a reliable index calculation is obviously super important. So
100%. Yeah, it's a tricky thing for sure, and I would say we're still figuring out like exactly how to make it work. But look, I'm pulling it up right now.
I mean, there's no right answer, right? You're kind of like having to come up with that yourself. So it's a tricky thing.
Exactly. So so there's a bunch of ways to do it, right? The way we think about it is, I'm not like I'm very crypto in that sense that like we want it to be open and anyone can do it. Anyone can make an index as well, right? So just to show you, the one we have here is one we've made along with our partners, right? We do this with a couple of different Oracle providers, right? And to make this happen. And so if you look at this is like an index of what's going on, right? You've got this, dollars raised, you've got money spent, you've got all these kinds of things together to create this index today, right? That's how you come up with this number. And when you think about that, like, sure, we can come up with the index, right? But that's not that. There's no way that's going to scale, and there's no way I have enough information and knowledge about every market to do that well, right? And so the way we do it is we have an incubator, right, an accelerator that we're going to announce soon. It really allows people who know these markets, right? You don't need to be right. I think the classic in RWAs too is like usually you have to like have $1 billion asset. Yeah. Right, like to do something or like have an asset that's useful, like that's just too ridiculous. Like that's way too high a barrier, right? Yep. If we allow this to be useful to people at a synthetics level, we can have anyone who's a developer or anyone who just even knows that market and knows how to create an index to come and build an index around it, which is like, tell me the 15 data feeds you want, tell me the 15 like events in time that you want to like back test to basically and make sure it tracks to the sort of like what it should be. We'll go fetch the data through our Oracle providers and a lot of our partners out there. We'll normalize it, we'll clean it up, we'll weight it properly to then give you the experience that you want, and then you can publish it. And then from there, we'll see where the liquidity flows, right? Like if it's a good index, if it's done by someone reliable and someone good, and like the sort of weighting is right, and the score will be shown to everybody, right? It's not going to be like black box type shit. You should be able to see what are the inputs, why it's driving this way, and everything like this, so you can have trust in the system. And then liquidity will flow to the right indices and the right markets, right? That are built on top of that.
I mean, it's a feel thing, right? Like users will know 100%. Right away if it feels right or wrong.
Exactly. And if it feels like manipulated or feels wrong or like it doesn't have the right feeds in, then we'll just bounce, right? And we'll also pass sort of the money back, right, to the index creator, right? Because that's the point. It should be a platform for them to easily come and build things of their own, right? And it's again, we're infrastructure. We're building tooling to make people that have the assets or have the knowledge make it easy for them to share that with the world and monetize it, right? And so we're not going to take it away. Like I want them to make all the dollars from it, and they should continue to expand it, right? And it's classic stuff. Now you've got a community, right? Ask the community what you think about adding this new thing and test it and show and introduce new things to the index, right? Or weight them a different way, right? And go back and learn and build it alongside them, right? These things are net new, and part of it when you're doing net new things is you're experimenting and you're learning. And so the best way to do that is like do it live, do it public with the audience, with the community, with the crypto audience, right? It's not like we're perfect in crypto anyway, but the best ones are done in full light with the whole community, where people can opine and decide how things want to happen. And so to me, that's like how this is going to happen. So we have an incubator where we're like bringing in a lot of the best, like sort of like index developers in so many words, like financial developers to build these things, and then allow that to come out, allow the economics to flow through. And of course, it's like anything, it's like any market, right? The more economics flow through, right? If you create a good index, you'll track liquidity. If liquidity comes in, you'll make money. And the more money you have, you'll be able to hire more people to help work on the index, right? So like it's a classic market type thing that will improve itself over time. And in the beginning, we'll handhold it a little bit and try and make it work. But again, we want it to be open market. Like I don't know what people can build, right? And I don't want to have any input into either, right? We want it to be an open canvas. So, but our only principle is it's got to be open, right? And it has to be viewable by everybody and viewable by everybody, so you can track the source back, everything. And there's a bunch of tooling we built for there. And number two is that the sort of structure of it, the economics are done correctly from the start to make sure that the right incentives are in place to build things. Those are two things that we care about, and everything else will leave to the community.
I guess I'll draw kind of an obvious parallel to Polymarket, which is kind of the industry leader prediction market right now. I think one of the things that I've praised them about has been, and granted, like this was not the case more than 3 months ago, I think, but since they've stepped up platform liquidity, the way that odds function on Polymarket is it's almost entirely, if not entirely, actually driven by actual people trading markets back and forth, which, in theory, if you believe that the market is always right, if you reach a point of enough liquidity and enough participants, you should get to pretty accurate predictions. But some of the problems with that are that, when you're talking about betting on political topics, I think this was a point you made a couple of weeks ago on the pod. Like, these are crypto degens trading this stuff. These are not political experts. Like, we don't know what we're doing. There's just people reacting to stuff that happens and buying and selling it. And, whatever the delta between those two causes the price shift. So it's not really an accurate science. And just because of the way that you guys are calculating your indices, like obviously that's not as much of an impact. Do actual market movements of people trading it impact index price at all? Or like how does that function?
Yes, it does a little bit. Basically, like it's based on the, excuse me, like you're sort of in between the time frame when the new price comes out, right? So let's just take a 10-minute. Let's say the price refreshes every 5 minutes or whatever. In between that time, it's basically going to go up and down based on the order book, right? And basically what happens, and then it'll resolve to the price that happens at that point, right? And so people are sort of gambling on the next moment, in so many words. Right?
That's cool, actually. So you get I like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of the idea. This way you get a little bit of both, right? You have some sort of like source of truth. But also at the end of the day, you're which is also just how perps work in general too, right? Like how markets work. Like like the price of ETH just goes up and down depending on when the next Oracle price comes in. And so it's a similar thing. Like again, like we sort of like take everything about crypto and try and apply it to this, and that's what we're focused on. So I'm excited about culture because I think there's such like a hangover on RWAs, or such like a not a hangover is not the right word, but it's an overhang or whatever the fuck it is, right? Where it's like some people think of it as one thing, and I don't think that's wrong, right? Don't just give me like I don't think it's wrong. I actually think that's the reason we started going down this road. But the more we get into it, the more like, and when we think about trying to be true to ourselves, right? A lot of the folks in RWAs are TradFi people trying to do TradFi things, and that's fine. That's what they do. We come from crypto, right? And like that's what we want to do here. And so like if I think about like what do I want to use, like I know more about like mineral vaults and solar fields than I ever hope to know about at this point, and that's like fine, and I'm glad we know it, but like also the thing that's sounds fun to me is more the cultured stuff, which is like how do we really, and I think also like again, taking something existing and putting it on chain is great, right?
Yep.
But I always think the exciting thing is building a net new thing, like something that couldn't be done before, something that's like not existing today. That's when I think you have like unlocks, right? I think even Polymarket, again, to their credit, right? I don't think they're different. I think we're two different things for what it's worth.
Yeah.
And I give Polymarket a tremendous amount of credit. I think they've done a great job of like showing like what can be done and being a new thing, right? Like, can you bet on politics today? Yeah, you could do call sheet, but like Polymarket's done a good job of using crypto to make it open and allow that to like better do things and also become a source of information.
I think it's the best implementation of a political focused betting app that I've seen, like even versus traditional stuff.
No question, right? And so that's why I think these like net new things are the exciting thing in my opinion. Like, and that's why I get excited about culture. But I think you balance that with a bunch of the classic tokenization stuff that brings money in and just becomes the lifeblood of the ecosystem. But at the same time, you build like higher and lighter surface area to experiment, right? And synthetics are the way to do it, right? Classic stuff, right? Synthetics, it's just no question. You can spend 6 months tokenizing stuff. Great. What do you have at the end of the day? One thing. Right, where I can fucking do 1 trillion synthetics and like let it rip from there and see where it goes, and then while we're doing that, build the foundation. So it's a two-stepper.
I guess this is kind of going long. I don't want to keep you too long, but I guess we can kind of wrap it up around here. Is there anything, any alpha you want to give the listeners? Anything you want to wrap things up with? Totally. Any time frames people should be thinking about?
100%. So if you were already experimenting and using the testnet, you've already got a bunch of miles and a bunch of things coming your way. And we take
which
all
miles
of those
are like the airdrop points, right?
Miles are our points, yes. And so you've got a bunch of miles, right, already. And as we transition to testnet phase 2 and mainnet, we're going to be doing that fairly soon in the next couple of weeks. Basically, in Q4, we'll have mainnet come out as well, and we'll have a lot more things coming out. Just like any ecosystem at the beginning, we're going to have a lot of incentives and a lot of the rewards around these kinds of things, and really rewarding a couple different dimensions, right? I think for us, we think about a cohesive ecosystem, right? Which means it's not just users clicking buttons on a testnet that are going to get rewarded, right? We're built for the long term, which means I want every facet of the ecosystem to get rewarded. So whether you are clicking buttons on testnet, whether you're deploying capital as a liquidity provider, whether you're deploying assets, right, and just bringing that over, whether you're a developer just building infrastructure to help these things, because sometimes you may not have all those things. You shouldn't have to have all of them. And even lastly, if you're a content creator, right, or someone doing memes or whatever like that, or helping promote the ecosystem or helping contribute, right, all those things are ways to do it. And so I would say this, like I think we're very mindful and respectful of our community. Like I think at the end of the day, the community is everything. Without them, we have nothing. And we're very grateful to have anybody give a shit about Plume. And we want to make sure that we take as much as possible of the rewards and give it to the community for helping build it with it, because they build every time they do something, it helps us, it helps them as well, and they need to be able to take share of that. And again, like if we're aligned to crypto ethos, that's absolutely how we want to build things. And so mainnet's coming up soon. There will be another DevNet ahead of that, where there's going to be all kinds of stuff, the same stuff as last time, rewards, and of course on mainnet, the same types of stuff as well are going to come up. And so a lot more to come there. We're doing a lot of novel things around, things around distributing tokens, things around distributing rewards and yield and things like that that'll come up. And so we'll get up onto that. But I would say, look, at the end of the day, Twitter or X is where we always are. Telegram, Discord, all of those things are there. So our homepage really is, of course, our website's up to date, but feel free to, anytime you want, go to our Twitter page and throw it in there, and then follow us, and then you can always kind of get a hold of us from there and stay up to date with the latest news.
Awesome. I guess I'll just throw in that as of time of recording, we just launched the Beluga Plume ecosystem page today. So if you need any kind of real-time updates or expert analysis of the Plume launch as things develop, feel free to head on over to the Beluga site. I guess we'll wrap things up here. Thank you, Chris, for here it is. This is probably a good idea. Pull it up.
Looks cool.
I think this came out really well. The UI looks nice.
Different ecosystems out there.
Click into the
pretty cool.
It's good stuff. I guess that kind of wraps things up today. Bit of a different podcast structure than usual, but we could not waste having Chris on the podcast to get deeper into Plume. I think I call it like it is. Chris knows that. I think, as I said at the beginning, we have way too many fucking layer 2 networks. But this one's pretty different, which is exciting to me. So I'm really looking forward to launch.
Totally. Thanks for having me on. It's been great to talk about it.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. Later.
Yes, sir. See you guys.